Welcome back to our channel, Soap Fans. Today is a phenomenal day to dive deep into the scandalous world of Los Angeles fashion and family feuds. We have some explosive spoilers that will leave you absolutely speechless. Grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get straight to the jaw-dropping drama unfolding right now. The collision was always inevitable, a catastrophic intersection of broken hearts, unchecked ambition, and a single, fatal mistake that will alter the Spencer legacy forever. When fate comes knocking in Los Angeles, it rarely arrives with a polite tap. It kicks the door down and shatters everything inside. Well, Spencer is about to learn that the highest stakes do not happen in the Forrester Creations boardroom. They happen in the dark, desperate hours of the night when vulnerability becomes a weapon in the hands of a predator. A night of reckless oblivion is about to give birth to a lifetime of inescapable consequences. Well, Spencer's world has been spiraling out of control for weeks. Crushed by Elektra Forrester's unforgiving anger, alienated from the woman he loves, and drowning in the toxic fallout of the Spencer Forrester family war, Will sought the only refuge he could find. He retreated to the beach house. He poured the liquor. He tried to drown the agonizing memories of Elektra, pushing him away. But he was not alone in that beach house. Melissa Dillon was watching, waiting, calculating. Dillon has always been a master of timing, and her opportunistic nature has never been more lethal. She saw the cracks in Will's armor. She witnessed the devastation in his eyes when Elektra drew a hard line in the sand. Instead of stepping back, Dillon stepped in. She played the role of the comforting confidant, the supportive friend offering a shoulder to cry on. But beneath that sweet, empathetic facade lay a ruthless agenda. Dillon did not just want to comfort the Spencer heir. She wanted to own him. And in the hazy, alcohol-fueled hours of that fateful night, she executed a masterclass in manipulation, taking full advantage of Will's compromised state to secure her ultimate prize. Fast forward to the morning after. The harsh Malibu sunlight streams through the beach house windows, illuminating the wreckage of Will's life. The empty bottles, the lingering scent of a mistake that can never be undone. Will wakes up with a pounding headache and a crushing sense of dread. But the true nightmare has not even begun. Dillon is standing there, no longer the gentle friend, but a woman holding the ultimate trump card. The words drop from her lips like a live grenade in the middle of the room. She's pregnant. Pregnant. The word echoes through the beach house, suffocating the air out of Will's lungs. A Spencer heir. A permanente, a life sentence. Will falls into a state of absolute, paralyzing panic. His heart rate skyrockets. His mind races. This cannot be happening. This was a drunken mistake, a moment of weakness born from the unbearable pain of losing Elektra. But biology does not care about broken hearts. The reality of the positive test stares him in the face, mocking his desperation. Will is a Spencer. He was raised with a strict, albeit twisted, code of loyalty and responsibility. He cannot simply walk away from his own flesh and blood. And Dillon knows it. This is the moment the mask completely slips. The sweet, understanding Melissa Dillon vanishes, replaced by a cold, calculating strategist who has just checkmated one of the most powerful families in Los Angeles. She does not offer sympathy for Will's shock. She does not offer a gentle transition. Instead, she wields this unborn child like an impenetrable shield. She knows exactly what this pregnancy means. It is her golden ticket into the Spencer empire, her permanent VIP pass into a world of wealth, power, and influence. She has successfully tied down the Spencer heir, and she is ready to collect her winnings. Dillon's first move as the future mother of a Spencer is nothing short of ruthless. She issues a devastating, non-negotiable ultimatum. If Will wants to be a part of this child's life, if he wants to avoid a scandalous public war that would drag the Spencer name through the mud, he must completely and permanently sever all ties with the Forrester family. No more olive branches. No more trying to make peace. And most importantly, no more Elektra Forrester. Dylan is demanding total allegiance, using the pregnancy to force Will into a corner from which there is absolutely no escape. The psychological torture for Will is unimaginable. Every beat of his heart still belongs to Elektra. Despite the anger, despite the corporate betrayals, despite the violent brawls with RJ, Will's soul is irrevocably tied to Elektra. He loves her with a fierce, consuming passion that no amount of alcohol could ever wash away. The tragedy is that Will was holding onto a glimmer of hope. He believed that if the dust settled, if the fashion war cooled down, he could eventually win Elektra back. He believed their love was strong enough to survive the crossfire. But this is the ultimate death blow to their reconciliation. How can he ever look Elektra in the eyes again? How can he explain that in his moment of weakness, he created a life with her former best friend? The betrayal is too deep, the wound too catastrophic. Elektra, who has already survived so much trauma and deception, will be utterly shattered by this revelation. The moment she finds out that Dylan is carrying Will's child, the door to her heart will slam shut, locked and sealed forever. Dylan's trap has not just captured Will. It has effectively assassinated the greatest love of his young life. And what about the broader Spencer-Forrester war? This pregnancy is the equivalent of dropping a nuclear bomb on an already blazing battlefield. Ridge Forrester, who has already banned all Spencer-Forrester intermingling, will view this as the ultimate vindication of his hatred. He will see Will exactly as he sees Bill, a toxic, destructive force that ruins the lives of the women around them. The Forrester family will close ranks around Elektra, solidifying their absolute disdain for the Spencer clan. The fashion war will escalate from a corporate rivalry to a blood feud. Meanwhile, Bill Spencer is about to receive the shock of a lifetime. Dollar Bill has always valued legacy above all else. A new Spencer grandchild is a massive development for the Empire. But Bill is no fool. He will immediately recognize the opportunistic glint in Melissa Dillon's eyes. He will see the trap she has laid for his son. Will Bill welcome Dylan into the fold, using the child as a new pawn in his ongoing war against the Forresters? Or will he unleash his ruthless power to neutralize Dylan's threat and protect Will from a gold-digging manipulator? The dynamic at Spencer Publications is about to become dangerously volatile. But the most heartbreaking aspect of this entire saga is the inescapable prison that Will is now building for himself. Driven by an unwavering sense of duty to his unborn child, Will is preparing to surrender his freedom, his happiness, and his true love. He is stepping into a loveless marriage, a hollow union built on a foundation of manipulation, alcohol, and regret. Dylan is already planning the wedding, already picking out the designer gowns, already envisioning her new life as a Spencer wife. She is weaving a web of deceit and control, and Will is walking straight into it, eyes wide open but completely powerless to stop it. Every day will be a suffocating reminder of what he lost. He will wake up next to Dylan, the woman who capitalized on his despair, and he will think of Elektra. He will sit in the Spencer boardroom, surrounded by wealth and power, and feel entirely bankrupt inside. Dylan's demands will only escalate. First, it is cutting off the Forresters. Next, it will be demanding a seat at the Spencer table. She will use the child as leverage for every argument, every disagreement, every power play. Will is not just gaining a child. He is acquiring a ruthless, live-in warden who will monitor his every move and manipulate his every emotion. The sheer audacity of Dylan's scheme is breathtaking. She has watched from the sidelines for months, playing the supportive friend, all while calculating the exact moment to strike. She knew Will was vulnerable. She knew the alcohol would lower his inhibitions. She knew that a pregnancy would be the ultimate, unbreakable chain. This was not an accident. This was a hostile takeover of Will Spencer's life. Dylan has proven herself to be one of the most dangerous players in Los Angeles, a woman who will stop at nothing to secure her place in the upper echelon of society. As the news begins to leak, the fallout will be catastrophic. Imagine the confrontation between Elektra and Dylan, the two former friends, now separated by the ultimate betrayal. Elektra's fury will be unmatched, a righteous, burning anger directed at the woman who stole her future and the man who was too weak to protect it. And what of R.J. Forrester? He has been waiting in the wings, eager to claim Elektra for himself. This pregnancy clears the path completely for R.J. He will swoop in, playing the hero, offering Elektra the stability and loyalty that will so spectacularly fail to provide. The tragedy of Will Spencer is a cautionary tale of how quickly a legacy can become a cage. He had the world at his fingertips. He had the love of a brilliant, beautiful Forrester. He had a prominent place in his father's empire. And in one night of drunken despair, he traded it all for a lifetime of manipulation and regret. Dylan's trap is flawless. She has secured the bag, secured the name, and secured the man. But at what cost? A marriage without love is a ticking time bomb, and when this one inevitably detonates, the shrapnel will tear through both families, leaving scars that will never heal. The stage is set for the most explosive, emotionally devastating storyline of the summer. Will Spencer is trapped in a nightmare of his own making, bound to a woman who views him as a prize rather than a partner. Melissa Dillon has won the battle, but the war for Will's soul has only just begun. Will he find a way to break free from her toxic grip? Or will he succumb to his duty and live a life of quiet desperation? How long can Dillon maintain her facade before her true, calculating nature pushes will pass the breaking point? The drama is red hot, the stakes are astronomical, and the fallout will be legendary. We must also consider the devastating impact this will have on Katie Logan Spencer. Katie has fought tooth and nail to protect her son, to guide him through the treacherous waters of the Forrester-Spencer feud. When she learns that her beloved Will has been ensnared by a calculated opportunist like Melissa Dillon, Katie's maternal instincts will ignite into a raging inferno. She will see right through Dillon's innocent act. Katie knows a gold digger when she sees one, and she will stop at nothing to expose Dillon's true motives. Expect a monumental showdown between Will's fiercely protective mother and the woman who is holding her son's future hostage. Katie will not surrender her son to a loveless trap without a brutal, scorched earth fight. The impending wedding itself promises to be a macabre spectacle of forced smiles and hidden agendas. Imagine the tension as Will stands at the altar, his eyes hollow, his heart thousands of miles away with Elektra, while Dillon walks down the aisle draped in victory. It will not be a celebration of love. It will be the execution of a hostile corporate merger, sealed with a ring and a vow of eternal entrapment. The Spencer wealth will be on full display, a gilded cage built specifically to hold Will captive. Every flash of the paparazzi's camera will document the tragic end of his freedom, immortalizing the moment Melissa Dillon successfully hijacked the Spencer dynasty. Will this loveless marriage destroy the Spencer empire from the inside out, or can Will escape Dillon's trap? Next, the trajectory of a single, reckless fist is about to rewrite the entire balance of power in Los Angeles. When Will Spencer pulled his arm back in a neon-lit chaos of the Bikini Bar, his blinding rage was locked entirely on R.J. Forrester. But fate, in its most cruel and unforgiving form, intervened. The punch missed its intended target and collided with the most devastating, unthinkable obstacle imaginable: Eric Forrester. The sickening, visceral crack of bone against bone echoed through the room, an inevitable collision of explosive Spencer anger and fragile Forrester pride. In a fraction of a second, a petty generational rivalry escalated into a catastrophic event with high-stakes consequences that will shatter two powerful families forever. The visual horror of the patriarch's fall is a cinematic nightmare, playing out in agonizing slow motion. Eric Forrester, the legendary titan of the fashion industry, does not merely stumble from the sheer force of Will's heavyweight blow. He is violently launched backward, his body sent crashing brutally into a nearby table. The impact, is deafening. Solid with splinters under his weight, heavy glass shatters into 1,000 jagged pieces, and the chaotic spray of spilled drinks rains down around him. It is a terrifying, physical manifestation of the Forrester-Spencer War reaching its absolute, unforgivable boiling point. A suffocating, deadening silence instantly swallows the bikini bar. The pulsating music seems to vanish, replaced by the sheer, paralyzing shock of the bystanders. Then, Elektra Forrester's piercing, blood-curdling scream shatters the vacuum. It is a visceral, agonizing sound of pure trauma, the voice of a young woman watching her beloved grandfather violently broken by the very man she once loved. R.J. Forrester stands frozen in absolute horror, his eyes wide, his breath hitched as he stares at the crumpled, motionless body of the man who built their family empire. Well, Spencer is entirely paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of his own catastrophic mistake. He stands rooted to the floor, his knuckles still burning from the impact, his chest heaving with adrenaline and sudden, overwhelming terror. He stares down at the destruction he just unleashed, the horrifying realization crashing over him like a tidal wave. He did not mean to strike the elderly patriarch, but in the brutal reality of this feud, intentions mean absolutely nothing. The king of Los Angeles fashion is down, and Will is the one holding the smoking gun. Pure, unadulterated panic ignites the room as Elektra and RJ snap out of their frozen shock and drop frantically to their knees amidst the shattered glass and splintered wood. Their hands hover over Eric's battered form, terrified that moving him might cause irreversible spinal damage. They're begging him to open his eyes, their voices cracking with desperation as they plead with the paralyzed bystanders to call an ambulance immediately. The sheer desperation in Elektra's voice is haunting, a desperate plea for a miracle in the middle of a nightmare. But then, the most dangerous element of this entire crisis rears its head. Eric Forrester's legendary, stubborn pride. He groans, his eyelids fluttering as consciousness slowly returns. Instead of staying down, instead of accepting the critical medical intervention he so desperately needs, a fatal arrogance takes over. He refuses to look weak, especially not in front of Spencer, and certainly not after the humiliating public meltdown he recently suffered. With a trembling but forceful motion, he pushes RJ and Elektra's frantic hands away. "I'm perfectly fine," Eric rasps, his voice shaky but laced with absolute, ironclad defiance. He waves off their frantic concerns, brushing the catastrophic, bone-rattling blow aside, as if he merely tripped over a rug. He insists he was simply startled by the commotion, a blatant, dangerous lie that everyone in the room can see right through. The sheer absurdity of his claim is terrifying. He just absorbed a full-force punch from a furious young man and crashed through solid furniture. Yet he is actively refusing to acknowledge the trauma. The struggle to stand is a horrifying spectacle of forced endurance. RJ and Elektra desperately try to keep him grounded, begging him to stay still and head straight to the emergency room for a comprehensive evaluation. But Eric forces himself upward. Anyone watching closely can see the hidden, agonizing wince, the slight, dangerous sway in his posture, the absolute agony he is masking behind a forced, reassuring smile. He is playing a lethal game of Russian roulette with his own life, prioritizing his ego over his survival. Eric demands to be taken home immediately, flatly refusing to wait for the paramedics that are surely rushing to the scene. He walks out of the bikini bar with his head held as high as his battered body will allow, leaving Will Spencer standing alone in the wreckage of his own making. The physical altercation may have ended, but the true, silent nightmare is only just beginning. Eric's refusal to seek real medical care is a ticking time bomb that threatens to detonate at any given second. The transition to the Forrester mansion shifts the narrative from explosive violence to a thick, suffocating dread. The grand estate, usually a beacon of elegance and power, now feels like a high-stakes, terrifying waiting room. Ridge Forster paces the expansive living room floor like a caged tiger, his jaw clenched so tightly it looks ready to shatter. The horrifying news of the assault has reached him, and his fury is a living, breathing entity, barely contained beneath his tailored suit. The moment Eric walks through the heavy front doors, Ridge descends upon him with the desperate urgency of a terrified son. Ridge does not approach him as a co-CEO. He approaches him as a man who has almost lost his father too many times before. Ridge begs, demands, and pleads with Eric to let a doctor examine him properly. He knows the brutal, unforgiving reality of blunt force head trauma, especially for a man with Eric's extensive and fragile medical history. Eric's refusal is absolute and terrifyingly calm. He stands in the center of his grand living room, looks his desperate son dead in the eye, and shuts the conversation down completely. He claims he is only a little rattled, nothing more, dismissing Ridge's frantic concerns with a wave of his hand. It is a masterclass in stubborn denial. Eric absolutely refuses to let the Spencers think they have physically broken him, prioritizing his untouchable patriarch persona over his own physiological reality. Brooke and Donna watch the tense exchange from the edge of the room, their faces etched with mounting, unspeakable terror. Donna's hands are trembling uncontrollably, her eyes wide with fear. She knows her husband better than anyone in the world, and she can see the subtle, terrifying tremors, the slightly unfocused, glassy gaze that Eric is so desperately trying to hide from his son. The silent communication between the two sisters speaks volumes. They know something is horribly wrong. Donna finally steps forward, her voice breaking as she delivers a heartbreaking plea. She begs her husband to just get checked out, reminding him of everything they have to lose and the terrifying health scares they have barely survived in the past. But Eric simply offers her a warm, entirely dismissive smile. He gently pats her trembling hand, assuring her that the resilient patriarch of the Forster family cannot possibly be taken down by a single, accidental punch from a reckless boy. Brooke watches the scene with a calculating, feral protective instinct kicking into overdrive. She knows that if Eric falls, the fragile, fractured peace in Los Angeles will instantly vaporize into a full-scale war. She sees the silent danger building beneath the surface, the invisible, lethal threat that is far more dangerous than any runway rivalry, stolen design, or corporate sabotage. Eric's stubbornness is paving the way for a tragedy that will scorch the earth. The medical reality of this ticking time bomb is absolutely terrifying. A blow to the head of that extreme magnitude, followed by a violent crash into a solid table, is a textbook recipe for a catastrophic subdural hematoma. A slow, creeping brain bleed that shows absolutely no immediate, outward symptoms until it is entirely, fatally too late. Eric is walking around his mansion with a loaded gun pointed directly at his brain, completely oblivious to the trigger being pulled. As the family briefly turns away to discuss their next move, the terrifying truth of Eric's condition is briefly exposed. A sudden, sharp wince crosses his face. His hand subtly shoots out to brace against a heavy armchair to steady a sudden, violent wave of vertigo. A momentary, terrifying lapse in focus glazes over his eyes. These are the blaring red flags of a man whose brain is actively swelling, a silent, ruthless killer working its way through his system while he forces a smile. It is no longer a question of if Eric Forster will collapse, but exactly when the devastating moment will strike. He could be standing in the bustling design room at Forster Creations or simply holding a glass of scotch in his quiet living room, when the lights suddenly and violently go out. Catching his family and his company completely off guard, his sudden, terrifying collapse will send absolute shockwaves through the entire Forster dynasty, changing their lives forever. The explosive fallout of his potential hospitalization, or worse, a coma, will be apocalyptic. If Eric hits the floor, The Spencer-Forrester feud will instantly escalate from a bitter fashion war to a violent, unforgiving blood feud. Ridge Forrester will no longer seek a boardroom victory or a PR win. He will seek the absolute, total destruction of Will Spencer and the entire Spencer bloodline. The gloves will come off, and Ridge's vengeance will be swift and merciless. We have already witnessed Ridge resort to physical violence, brutally punching Bill Spencer in his own office over a mere verbal taunt. If his father is fighting for his life on a ventilator because of Will's reckless rage, Ridge will unleash a wrath so ruthless it will make their past battles look like child's play. He will demand immediate arrests, sweeping restraining orders, and the complete financial dismantling of Katie and Bill's Logan designs. Bill Spencer's current gleeful arrogance will shatter instantly. Right now, Bill is soaking up the viral mockery of Eric's recent meltdown, but if Eric goes into a coma, Bill will be forced to defend a son who committed an unforgivable, potentially fatal assault. The Spencer war machine will have to pivot violently from corporate gloating to a desperate, high-stakes legal defense, igniting a courtroom and corporate war that will leave no survivors. The emotional destruction of Elektra and Will is absolute. Any lingering, desperate hope for Will and Elektra's romantic reunion is officially dead and buried under the rubble of that shattered table. Elektra will never, ever forgive the man who put her beloved grandfather in the hospital. The severe trauma of watching that brutal punch land will haunt her every waking moment, pushing her permanently into the waiting, fiercely protective arms of R.J. Forrester. R.J.'s dark, dangerous evolution will be complete. Watching his grandfather suffer because of his own bitter rivalry with Will is going to trigger a ruthless transformation. RJ will shed his peaceful designer persona and become the ultimate, vengeful Forrester weapon, driven by pure, unadulterated hatred for Will Spencer. The next generation's war has officially begun, and it promises to be even more vicious and unforgiving than the battles of their fathers. Every single moment Eric Forrester remains on screen is now a terrifying, breath-holding exercise for the audience. His stubborn, unyielding pride is actively paving the way for the most devastating medical crisis in the show's history. The clock is ticking down to zero. The invisible danger is mounting by the second, and the impending explosion is absolutely inevitable. Will Eric's refusal to seek help be the fatal mistake that finally destroys him? Or will the truth come out before it is too late? The entire landscape of Los Angeles fashion and family loyalty hangs precariously in the balance, waiting for the patriarch to finally fall. Will Eric's pride be his ultimate downfall, igniting a Forrester-Spencer war with no survivors? Drop your theories below, hit subscribe, and join the debate.